Meteor JS versus Servoy. Meteor, the guys just put up a proof of concept video this past week, and it has been generating a lot of buzz in the JavaScript development world. Just a lot of discussion, and rightfully so. The premise of Meteor is that writing and creating web applications with all the JavaScript libraries out there is quite painful. There is a lot of grunt work needed to compile all those libraries and to do a build and to learn them and to sort of evaluate different ones for what might be better than some of the other ones, and making them all work together. That's just the start, and then you would actually develop your application. Meteor aims to bring all that together into one package and isolate your effort just to developing an application, which I think is the holy grail of where JavaScript web application development is aiming. There's a ton of other people that are aiming for the same thing as well, and they're starting to pop out of the woodwork because of this Meteor as well. So it's like the wild west out there. The reason that we're having so much fun with this is, JavaScript in the browser is so much faster than it was several years ago, and it really does. The browser is the deployment platform for the future of applications, and if you're not in that space, then you're going to be left behind. So Meteor versus Servoy. Meteor aims to collect all these JavaScript libraries and make it easier and make them work together in the background. As a developer, you don't have to worry about them. Now Servoy, interesting enough, as soon as I watched this video, is the similarities to Servoy is striking. Servoy has been doing this for years, except with in the Java realm. So Servoy compiles all these Java projects together into one seamless application platform and deployment platform with a nice IDE and everything. So you can just really focus on creating applications with Servoy. The whole server-side stack is Java, but one of the deployment client sides is the browser. And so this is, I'll just actually sat down today and did the same video those guys, the Meteor guys, did, but just with Servoy. So here we go. So the first thing we are going to do is create a solution, and pretty simple thing to do. On the left there is where all the objects in the hierarchy. We're creating a form right now. It's a forms-based development tool, Servoy is, and so it's a little bit different than it's more of a 4GL type of development environment. But the client, there's several different clients that you can do, and we're going to start this right up right now. And one of them is Instant Web Client, Servoy Web Client, and that was Hello World. I'm going to do some, unlike the Meteor, I will go ahead and do some actual development, so you can sort of see how things are styled and developed and placed. It's a little bit different than writing HTML applications in terms of a DOM. But there's a Servoy object model, and that's what that tree over there on the left represents. And you also do code in JavaScript. Servoy uses the Rhino engine for all your business logic is written with JavaScript, and Rhino is the project that makes that all translate into Java on the server side transparently for you. Alright, so it looks like Servoy does have style sheets that apply to any of the objects that you put on a form. And I think one of the neat things is that when you change things here on the form and just hit save on the browser, it automatically pushes to the browser without doing a refresh. And this is this IDE. This is in Eclipse, and you'll see the familiar Eclipse environment there that Servoy has added some perspectives to that are specific to doing Servoy development. And one of the editors is the form development, the form editor right there. And you can see the palette has all the typical 4GL type of objects that you can place on a form. And what I'm doing right now, I think I just switched that around to the form is, instead of a record view of one record, I switched it around to be a table or a list view, and then put that main label in the title part or a header part. Now, instead of using Mongo, Servoy uses JBDC connections to any kind of JDBC compliant database. And that you actually can use the new NoSQL type of databases, but not showing that here. This is very typical Java type. Any connection to databases is done this way, and you see how easy it was to. Right now I'm created a table. Now I'm going to create some fields, and then we're actually going to hook these fields onto objects on the form. And Servoy takes care of the data persistence for you once you've done this. And so this is a very standard SQL world that we're working with right now. I think right about here is I connect the form to a data source, and then at this point, text fields and all those kinds of goodies can be connected directly to table fields. All right, so I'm just doing a bit of, layout type of work. I think this kind of development approach, forms-based development approach, appeals to a certain segment of developers where HTML or templating engines appeals to other kinds of developers, but there's advantages and disadvantages to both. I think the visual approach is certainly an advantage when you're doing forms-based development. I think that there are certainly some editors in development environments that are trying to make visual development of web apps and web pages more a reality, but still it's not there yet as well. Just like Meteor is trying to accomplish data binding and collecting all the pieces you need for a web application together in one place. But you still have to hand code HTML, and your UI is very much the traditional web CSS type of thing. All right, here I'm doing the same kind of live data, and notice it was that the Meteor guys were doing. I was just adding data in there on the fly, and it was showing up on the web client. And it's kind of it's an object-oriented type of Servoy object model is just like the web object model in that the DOM, and in that it's you go get objects and they have functions on them, or they have fields, you can put data into them. And I was doing that on the fly. Servoy has that nice that window there where you could just do things as the debugger and the whole thing is running. And right now I think I'm just doing some more UI type of work. And CSS, yes, it's there. You can also set the properties on objects without a style sheet. And more old school, where you just set widths and everything. So when you click an object, you have all the properties, but it's better to assign a style sheet and then use one of the styles. Assign a style sheet to your form, and then on your object go ahead and assign a particular style to the object. Then you can change it one shot for all the objects. And it's a very similar concept to web development. And Servoy does translate this style sheet into real CSS style sheets, all transparently for you. And this is I don't think in this video I ever showed like Firebug and to show what's going on, but all that does, Servoy is just doing the grunt work for you. And the aim of Servoy is to give you a visual IDE, visually based IDE that allows you to develop without having to go too many places. All the pieces are in one place. And they gave you a sample. When you create a new style sheet, they put all the sample CSS in for you. It's a good example. So boilerplate type CSS. And there's certain conventions that the Servoy styles sheet uses, which is a little bit different than CSS3 norm. And one of them is that even odd type of thing right there, that Servoy will automatically take that convention and apply it to rows on the form. And I'm just sitting here adjusting some of those to sort of make it look a little bit more like what the Meteor guys are doing. Now, here I'm showing is I can't run two web clients at the same time when you're in developer mode. And so, I mean, when it's deployed on a server, obviously you can. But Servoy just keeps the traffic down to one web client. But there's also the Java virtual machine client. Servoy is called Smart Client. So I opened up one of those to show that when you change data in one place, it automatically will data broadcast to the other client. And that was one of the cool things that the Meteor guys are bringing out. To write that kind of data broadcasting code is very painful currently right now in the JavaScript application world. And so I'm putting the record count, the like count column on there. See this, you have to store the data somewhere, and so this is a database backed application, so to speak. And then you have to display your data somehow, and then you do stuff with your data. And right now I'm doing the UI part. Okay, here's where we're finally going to be binding an action to doing something. And notice I put a button on the form, and then we are going to assign a method to this button, to a certain event on this button. And you'll notice in the properties pane there just to the left of the button that there's all kinds of events that for all kinds of objects that you can actually bind a method to. So I'm going to go ahead and create a method, and I just bound it to the click event, which is the default. And all forms also, not only do they have a form editor for the UI, developing the UI, but they also have a script editor for that form, and where you put all your functions in a nice neat place for that form. And so basically I just took that field and I'm adding one to it every time I click, and here we go, boom, 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 and that's as easy as that was. And let's see what else I'm doing here. Okay, just going through this. Some point, let's see, I think I opened this is the other client. Notice that the data has been broadcast over here. And so now I'm going to do the same thing over here, and I think go back to the web client, to the smart client, and there's your everything has been going back and forth seamlessly. Alright, so I'm focusing on just developing my application without having to worry about the nuts and bolts going on behind the scenes, and it's really cool. Alright, what am I doing here now? Oh, I'm adding a sort in. So not only when I click will I add a count, a like count, but every time I click it, I'll resort the table view based on that particular data in that column. Now the difference here is that that's between Servoy and Meteor is that Servoy does data broadcasting, but it does not do UI broadcasting out of the box. I mean, there's a couple functions we could add to that, and I think I skipped over that to actually broadcast the UI. So that sort is per client. So where the dividing line where Servoy decides, hey, this is where we don't want to be broadcasting too much stuff all over. If you have like 1,000 clients connected at one time, you don't. Servoy has made a decision. I don't want all 1,000 of those clients to be, change a sort because somebody down at shipping decided to change, click a button, and everybody else, their view, maybe they want to see the new data, but they don't want their UI to just go flying all over the place. But this, in the case of the example the Meteor guys are doing, is that if everybody is clicking a like for their colors, let me pause right here. I'll come back to that. Let me just finish. Like colors, then you want to see that data and the sort always be in one place. So you could do that with Servoy. Now, what I'm doing here is Meteor is showing how you do Mongo commands directly into into the browser, and so what I've done there is doing the same things with the command console of Servoy. Is just go ahead and it's SQL queries, and go ahead and do the same things live. So just copying that completely, and I adding 10 more likes to that one record that I found, loading all the records here back again. And notice this command console, I do all kinds of things, and go ahead and it'll just update on the clients as things are going. All right, Meteor does not have, they're sort of obfuscating the server-side code and client-side code, which is an interesting concept. Servoy is all client-side code that you develop, right? I mean, server-side code we're developing. And Servoy pushes it out to the client for you. And so you would never be in like Firebug, for example, and writing code like Meteor was doing. So it's a very secure environment, Servoy is, because everything is done on the server. And so, whether that's an advantage to you or not is there are dividing lines where maybe you want more stuff going out on the client. Now you can write client code on the client, a nice little few functions to do the callback thing. So you can do a traditional web type of thing, and you would type round trip, or you can, from the server, you can trigger client code, and from the client you can trigger server code. But in general, if you're just writing a quick application, is just go ahead and just write it all here on these methods and let Servoy take care of everything. Now, the Meteor guys, they went ahead and they had a nice little label the way they display. They didn't do it in like a typical database fashion of here's how many likes and here's the name of the color. So I am creating a calculation and going and getting the data in those columns and just putting some strings together to make that display a little bit more user friendly. And I'll put it off to the side here. And neat thing about Servoy calculations, again, it's just all JavaScript and you have access to a bunch of data. Now I'm assigning this calculation. I can assign it to a field. I can also assign it to a label, which I'm doing right here. Now a label, you can type anything, but you can also display data from your back end, but you have to click that display tags there, so I didn't quite follow through. I'll just show you now. When you display the tags, instead of it displaying that template type of text that you typed in there, it'll actually with that convention with the percent signs around whatever is there, it'll go get a column name. And I create a calculation that you create is a type of column. You could either it could be displayed just in memory, or you create a table name, table column with the same name as your calculation will be stored. All right, so we're going to do some logic in a little bit more advanced logic in our calculation, and that's to just change the label display depending on what the values are for each row. So this calculation will return a different string depending on what the values are in the fields for that record. So I'm just sitting here trying to get my... Now notice that there's all three of them have a lot in it, and so just because my numbers are a little different than theirs, so let's go ahead and change the numbers around. And notice as soon as I save that and go over here, Servoy does polling and it'll push that out, and there's your strings. All right, we've done the our application and it's on the ID, but let's deploy this to the real world. So you have a file, it's a big XML file, a zip file of XML and all kinds of stuff, that you just export your solution into this file. And pretty cool, since this is running in Eclipse, the anywhere you start up Servoy, the server mode, Servoy server differently. It's a headless type of thing going on, and once you start it up, you can access the admin application for Servoy in a browser. So this allows you to access Servoy servers anywhere in the world, obviously. And I've been on planes years ago going to like South Africa and things like that, and hooking into Servoy server in like San Francisco and literally pushing up a new solution. So this is you just go ahead and import that zip file, and .servoy is actually a zip file, and just import that. And once you've done that, it is available to all the users. Now the users can restart or if it's just a few changes, they will get them as the client, as the web cache refreshes. And there you have it. Servoy versus Meteor. A lot of similarities,